So just be aware that it might run more than an hour, just in case people have a lot of questions. It's going to be an interactive session, like we did one of the sessions on science and anatomy. And I've collected a lot of information, so hopefully it'll be an interactive discussion. That's my intent. So we'll wait a few more minutes. Let's few more people join. As we sit over here, let's take a couple of long deep breaths so that we can discuss and argue and consume all the information very effectively. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. So continue for a minute or so as we give a couple more minutes for people to join in. Inhale and exhale. Make an effort always to exhale slightly longer than inhalation. We'll start with our opening prayer. Namaskar Mudra. Inhale and exhale to our heart chakra. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahi Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvisha Bahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Grab your right wrist at the back with your left palm. Inhale, slightly go back, and exhale all the way to the ground in front of you, to your own Ishtadevata Devi or any higher power you believe in. So I'll not wait anymore. We will just start the discussion and go from there. If you have questions in between or have comments, you can unmute yourself or even unvideo yourself. You can start your videos and we can talk. So today's topic is basically the theme is to get a connection between anatomy and yoga. And I'll get into some specific sections of yoga rather than full yoga itself. It'll be a huge topic, and we'll take some use cases or examples and see how these practices affect our neuropsychology in ways which recently, it's only these things are coming out only recently. And and they have not been and actually in yoga courses and yoga seminars, they are not very clearly talked about. So I thought, based on my knowledge and my interaction with a lot of doctors, with a lot of yogi and doctors who have become yogis, and yogis who are into physiology and anatomy, and my own studies. And I I'm trying to put a framework together, which I think will give some input into this whole discussion of um, yoga. How does it really help? We all know experientially that yoga helps in different ways. There are a lot of experimental experiments on yoga, a particular type of yoga doing this to this type of diseases. And as Vyasa does a lot of work on that, and some others. Patanjali also is doing a lot of work. Ames does some work. There are different universities. Yeah, Harvard does some work. In fact, there are a lot of universities today working on breathing and COVID-19 and how that can help. There are actually classes going on, experiments going on. There are web experiments in Facebook, pre and post analysis. I'm part of a couple of those. And I'm seeing a lot more awareness on that. Now, to do this, one of the things I would like to start saying is my focus today would be primarily two things. One is breath, and the second one is the vagus system, which is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. And why is breath? And I will throw out questions, and you can more than welcome to interact with me as we go through. Why is breathing so important? I mean, we know breathing is important because we will die in a few minutes if we don't. But why is breathing important, in the sense the right kind of breathing important, and why breathing is such a important part of our wellness, our disease. In fact, it's just not wellness. Wellness, it's a talk, because that's an easy way of saying things. But even particular diseases, we can approach through different types of yogic mudras, yogic pranayamas, and yoga asanas. But I'm going to delve more into the breathing part today rather than anything else. It's a vast subject, and along with breathing, we'll do some analysis of how the vagal nerve takes part in a lot of the yogic movements we are doing. And now keep in mind that we are talking about yoga, but a lot of other activities, running, jogging, doing gymnastics, all of those have impacts on our breath, on our nervous system, and some of them good, some of them not so good. But we are interested only in the yogic procedures. So one of the things, and I'm gonna take some examples, and that's why in my text message I said we'll take use cases. So, for example, in the morning, one of the recommendations is to, first thing in the morning, even before you wash your mouth, to sit in malasana and have a glass or two gulping water, room temperature, maybe mildly warm. Different gurus say different things, and I think it has to do with our body type. For proper elimination, gulp water in and go for proper elimination, and we do it in a squatting position. Why is that? Now, in layman's term, we can say, well, we are sitting there, we are putting a lot of pressure on our stomach, the water is going in, you're doing some magic, the pressure, gets the thing out. Yeah, in broad terms, that's what it is. But what happens is when we sit in a malasana, our anal sphincters are getting relaxed. So that's an important thing. Anal sphincters, there are internal anal bands and outside anal band. The internal, when there is a bowel movement coming, the internal one, it involuntarily opens up. And the outside one is where we have control. That's where, continence and other things come in. How do we control the outside sphincter? So when we sit in a certain position, there are certain things happening. It's the pressure. Yes, the pressure is there. The water is coming in there. But there is also a whole bunch of neurophysiological things happening. I don't know how much you know about vagal system. The vagal system is we have 12 cranial nerves going into your brain, okay, into and outside, kind of like the 12 nerves. So few optic nerves go into the optics, the auricular nerves goes to the ears. There are nasal, pharyngeal and laryngeal. So there are outlets of different nerves out there from the 12th cranial going out into the system all the way down here. Now the vagal system is the 10th cranial nerve, which is a long nerve. That's why it's called vagal, because it's a vagabond. It comes from vagabond, a vagrant. So it's running away. So this nerve runs away throughout the body. And so it has an impact. So one branch, and I'll come to vagal nerve later on after I do my breathing side. It goes all the way down into the esophageal sphincter. So the esophagus and stomach, there is a sphincter there. So the vagal nerve goes all the way from here, goes through the carotid sinus, the jugular vein and carotid goes down the right side of the heart. It supplies the lung, SA node in the heart, and then goes into the carotid, into the gastrointestinal tract, and follows the gastrointestinal tract to a certain extent. And then there is another offshoot of vagal nerve which comes from the rectal area, the sacral area, and goes up. So it's a very peculiar nerve. As you know, parasympathetic nervous system, it doesn't happen between this and this and the kind of up to the sacral region. These nerves coming out of the spinal cords here are mostly sympathetic. Sympathetic is flight or fight. Both are needed. Flight or fight means you got scared, or you want to do something, you're excited. Those are so from throat to little below navel. And the parasympathetic, on the other hand, are the ones over here. Primarily 70% of is vagal, and there are others, and the rest of it in that rectal, the sacral part of the spine. So what happens is, so when we are sitting like that, or in that position, a couple of things happen. One is there is a skeletal-muscular tissue, fascia. I talked about fascia in another class. I actually took a fascia stimulation class in one of these classes I took. And fascia is actually a different system. It's not just like cardiovascular and other. This is a system. It's like a structure. It's like a Batman type of suit internally, which holds us. And there's a lot of nerve impulses that goes through that. And so that goes in there, and we really hold our posture through that. So what happens when you put that? So there is nerve impulses there, and then the vagal activation happens. So what's happening is, the vagus also is into the esophageal, gastroesophageal endings, right? They go there, supply there. And peristalsis happens because of vagal stimulation. So in the morning, if you're calm, if you're sitting down and you gulp water, there's a combination of mechanical and neural system works to make your rectum and the whole area open up, and you have proper elimination. So that's kind of the 100 or maybe 1,000 feet level of anatomy I'm going to talk about. You can, in a physiology class, people go deep down into each nerve endings, what they do, what kind of receptors, and all that can happen. That is not the purpose here. So my point here is when our rishis says, "Yahan pe baitho," sit down in malasana and do this, gulp, lukewarm water with gulp it in, sit here, and it does, and it happens. I do it every day, as much as I can. And again, the other thing is, don't do it after washing the mouth, because presuming that nighttime you clean your mouth, in the morning there's a lot of saliva there. There's a lot of things that have happened throughout the night, and that saliva is very important. It's like a nutrition. You should not throw it away with washing your mouth. You should gulp it. There are yogis who take that saliva in water and put it in the eyes and face for nutritional benefits. It destroys a lot of germs, and so on and so forth. So that's one thing. So now coming to breathing, let's come to breathing. So let me interject here. Do anybody has any questions, or do you? Maybe you can throw some light. That I'm just starting in this whole journey, so maybe can shed some light on something here which I can learn from.
Hey, can I ask something quickly?
Yeah, who's this?
Raj Thakur.
Oh, hi, Raj. Hi.
Yeah, so you mentioned this asana. So, but that's fine. Some people don't have the need for the asana. They will get the bowel movement anyway.
Yeah.
It's only for the people who have problems like constipation or something else.
Yeah. So there is so there are two things. One is, even if you don't do yoga, you lead a life, right? Normal life. And some people are naturally blessed to have a proper bowel movement, or again, diet has something to do with it, and your whole lifestyle has something to do with it, and all of that stuff. So there are a whole bunch of other factors. This is not the only factor. The thing is, this would add to it. So if you have good elimination, you probably have a better elimination. And if you have constipation, it will help in that. So that's how we should take a look at it. Now, for people who don't have knees, and frankly, I got hurt a couple of months back, and I'm having problems with my right knee and not being able to do proper malasana or even vajrasana. Bending my knees is becoming a trouble for me. So there are tools there, so where you can actually do as much as you can. This is called squatty potty. There is a modern, you can look up Amazon, where you can actually sit on your commode and use the squatty potty to lift your leg up. Again, this is not perfect, but it's better than not having. So having that up pressure and filling, and then that triggers a whole bunch of chain reaction that can help your elimination. And good health is very much dependent on good elimination, because otherwise the waste matters are there, sitting there. It creates a whole bunch of chain reactions and toxicity that you have to deal with. And it's very evident from bloating and other things that happen for a lot of people. Okay, so does that answer your question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an issue with thing. And then look at that little tool. It's like a stool which you can use in front of your potty, in your commode, and lift your leg up and puts somewhat pressure on your stomach, and then can help you out in that way. So breath. So let's come to breath, and I want to just give a little bit of I'll talk about a couple of things. A couple of things is, one is the role of nasal breathing, the role of slow and smooth breathing, and the role of nitric oxide in our health. Okay, breathing is a very underrated subject, and few scientists have done some work here and there, and it has recently gained some importance because of the COVID-19 in respiratory. And there are actually, I have heard in some hospitals, there are some people who are known to be breathing experts have been called to help out. Things like that have happened in now and also in the past. But breathing is a very underrated subject. People talk about so many other things, but nose is not there, up there in the list. Eyes are important, mouth is important, ears are important, but for some reason the nose, I think people think, well, air comes in and goes out, so it doesn't matter. Mouth is there, so nose doesn't matter. But there is big difference between nasal breathing and mouth breathing. And those, in fact, there are several people and there's a lot of research on this, of course. There are papers on nasal breathing and increase of nitric oxide and the role of nitric oxide in human health in general. Very, 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 very important. So, our lung is approximately a 6-liter kind of ball of alveoli. Say it is a balloon. The two balloons, the left and the right. The left has 3 lobes. I would say 2.5 lobes. There's a small lobe and the below, and the right lobe is 2 lobes. So broadly, in yogic terms, we say the upper lobe and the lower lobe. That's 2, 3. We don't care much. So basically, from kind of chest up is the upper lobe, and then lower is the lower lobe. It's very important for so 6 liters, out of which 1.5 liters is approximately not used. Not used, the residual. It's used. It's used in a very different way, but we don't have access to it. So we really have access to about 4.5 liters. And these are approximate figures. But normal breathing, when we do a normal inhale and exhale that we are doing currently, say, we inhale, exhale about 0.5 liter. So the rest of it, and that's called the tidal volume, and the rest of it is not used. So when we do a deep inhalation, we go into that 4.5 liters. We go almost like 3.5 liters. And some yogis can do more. And when we exhale fully, then we actually exhale a little bit more. Okay? So I don't know the reason for that, but that seems to be the way the lung works. And people don't breathe that deep, don't breathe that slow. People just approximate. So the question is, what is the breath rate for normal human beings? And I have some numbers here. It's kind of interesting numbers, and I'm going to read them out because I know the breath rate number, but there are other numbers I need to. So anybody can take a stab at that. What is each breathe in, breathe out takes how long? Average for humans. Any take? How many times do we normally breathe? Like 16, 17, 20 times? So on the average, it is 3.3 seconds. So we do a 3.3 second inhalation exhalation, and so that turns out to be, so how many times we breathe is 670 million breaths per life. And I have some other interesting numbers. Air travels 25 sextillion molecules, which means 250 followed by 20 zeros, 18 times per minute, 25,000 times a day. So there is a lot of activity. Breathing is a lot of activity. I mean, apart from the fact that if you stop breathing, we'll die pretty soon, much before if you stop eating or drinking. But the fact is, it's a lot of activity goes on. Now, another important thing is the alveoli. It's the lung is like the grapes. If you took the grapes, ultimately the branches go down. The alveoli is like little sacs, very light, thin membrane where the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen happens with the bloodstream. And that alveoli, that intersection, the time for one cycle of exchange is about 3.25 seconds, 0.75 seconds. So that's an important thing to remember, because the speed of breathing is very, very importantly related to that. So faster we would breathe, the lesser time of that segment of air going through the alveoli will have for the exchange. The exchange remains not optimally placed. So that's one thing. The other thing is, when our nose, so the way our nose is structured, it has this turbinates, and this has those hairs, the ciliaries, and then we have the sinuses and the mucosa. And when the air goes through the nose, along, waving through the turbinates, what happens is there is a release of nitric oxide. And the slower that we breathe, the more nitric oxide is eliminated. And that comes along with the air into our lungs. And nitric oxide has a whole bunch of beneficial effect in the breathing process. And I'll come to that. So before that, the other process is mouth breathing. In Western cultures, mouth breathing it's like, some people think that's very good. Breathe through mouth, all the time. I hear all the time. So mouth breathing, the secretion of nitric oxide doesn't happen. Now the other thing is, mouth breathing is shallow. Mouth breathing only instigates or only fills up kind of the upper part of the lungs. And if you do that, say we can do an experiment here. So chin to chest, and keep the mouth open. Just try a couple of times. Chin to chest, mouth open, and breathe through your mouth. Last round. And now, if you so you can do a nose breathing. Mouth shut, spinal cord straight. So nasal breathing, and to that you can add a little bit of belly breathing. What happens? The diaphragm moves a little bit more. The air goes all the way to the lower lobes, and therefore the filling of the air, the half a liter I was talking about, you can do a little bit more. So deep breathing, it goes beyond the 500 milliliter or half liter, and you seem to breathe more, and you seem to breathe throughout the lungs. And what nitric oxide does in nasal breathing, the excess nitric oxide that is coming in, that circulates the blood throughout. So what nitric, even say, if when you are doing purely mouth breathing, you are not, but supposing you are doing a mixture of nasal and mouth breathing, you will a lot of it will be in the upper lobe of your lung and less in the lower lobe. And then the nitric oxide has a profound impact on the redistribution of blood throughout the lung region, and therefore the absorption of lung oxygen and the exchange of oxygen carbon dioxide is much more. So there are a lot of papers on this. These are all scientifically proven things. But I would like to state that this is such a thing that has been there for thousands of years. And there are a lot of doctors who create their own breathing techniques. They take this or that from the old techniques, modify a bit, and call them their techniques. And they're some of them are famous techniques. The holotropic technique that I learned. I learned a few of these techniques actually in the last few days. There is called holotropic, and then there's called Buteyko method. So some of these, they are basically variations of pranayama. Now, one of the things, so slower and deeper, slower, deeper. Best is so. What is the ideal count? So there is some research there, and our yoga system has a whole bunch of other parameters. We talk about 4-second breathing, 16-second holding. I'll come to the hold. That's an important point about breathing. 16 seconds hold and 8 seconds elimination. So you can breathe maybe 1 minute or maybe one in 5 minutes if you are. In fact, divers who dive, deep divers, there's a world record of 8 minutes without oxygen, and with oxygen 16 minutes underwater. And they do it. So it's not that other cultures didn't have this; they all have it. But our systems of pranayama is probably the most matured system. I have not seen anything consistently and systematically like that we have in our okay, yeah. So so this is very important. So we need to so I'll come to the whole part of it. My train of thought has gone a little bit. So we are going to do a so as you see the breathing part of it, the slower it is, better time you are getting for the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen in your alveoli. The better the oxygen is going into your system, the better is your chances of your organs and all your muscles and to get rejuvenated, to be oxygenated, and immune system to be in a much better shape. In fact, that's exactly the reasons why a lot of these studies are happening parallelly. In fact, Harvard is doing a study. I know that part of that study, and I think UC Santa Barbara was doing one. So those are different types of studies that are going on to find out slow, rhythmic breathing. So basically, we are doing our pranayamas have done a lot of good to a lot of cultures, our culture, and is doing right now. Now, couple of things like Anulam Vilom, left nostril, right nostril. We know left nostril gives more, creates calmness, so it invokes the parasympathetic, invokes the vagal nerve. And right side, right breathing is more, invokes the sympathetic. And so that's the throat to sacral region, those nerve systems emanating out of the spinal cord. That's interesting. You also know there's a concept of ganglion in the parasympathetic and sympathetic both. In the sympathetic, the ganglions are, so those are the seats that the nerve impulse comes and then they distribute it to the organ. So parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, they handle it very differently. The location of the ganglion in parasympathetic is in the organ. In the sympathetic, it is near the spinal cord. So, couple of other things. So the importance of this breathing and the importance of vagal system. So when we breathe, we can breathe. So why is it the lung not? It's like a balloon, right? Why is it not bursting out open, or was it not going beyond everything? So one is there's a structural limitation, yes. But even within the structural limitation, we could really breathe out, breathe in, and make it really large. It doesn't happen because the vagal nerves get triggered. So as you said, vagal nerves are supplying everywhere. The heart, the lung, gastro, everywhere. And therefore, when at a certain point it reaches, the vagal nerve says, enough, you can't do it anymore. That's it, you can't do it. And the whole system stops after that. You cannot do beyond a certain point. It's called Brewer, I think Heringer-Brewer effect. So that's it's a physiologically studied point. And that's why otherwise, we would have blown out of, you could be like this, one of those fish which blows like that, you would have been like that. We are not like that. So that's one thing. The other thing is, when we do breathing up and down, especially belly breathing, it activates the diaphragm and more, and therefore the breathing at the lower lobe of our lungs is much more effective. So nasal breathing, deep breathing, slow breathing, very, 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 very important. And again, I'm just focusing on the breath and focusing on the vagal nerve, but the vagal nerve triggers a whole bunch of neurotransmitters and hormones throughout the body, and I'm not going to go into that. It's like a chain reaction of things that happen. Now, the other thing, the question, and this is an important question, what about fast breathing? In yoga, we do fast breathing. We do Kapalbhati. One of the first things we do, Kapalbhati or fast Bhastrika. And I think a lot more research needs to happen here. It is seen, and there are breathing techniques in the Western world. So a lot of the doctors and a lot of clinics, they have used this. It's a fast exhalation process. They say that it's an important. We think oxygen is only important in our system, but there are people who say carbon dioxide even more important. Carbon dioxide really, there has to be. Again, I do not know all the detailed physiological reasons for that, anatomical reasons for this. But carbon dioxide at a certain level needs to be there in the blood for us to even survive, number one. Number two is there is a play. Like for example, when we hold, the level of carbon dioxide goes up a bit. And that's okay. Now again, in yogic traditions, they tell you that don't hold for too long, or hold only under the guidance of a proper guru. The reason for it is that you do not want that balance to be totally imbalanced. You don't want carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide acts like a narcosis, narcotic. So it's what happens is that carbon dioxide narcosis happens, which makes you go into a trance-like impact. So a lot of times when you feel calm, is because as if you are taking a light dose of sleeping medication or something, but it's natural, and that is due to that mildly elevated carbon dioxide. Like I'm trying to get some more papers on this to study a little bit more, but that's how you explain the holding part of pranayama. And that's also the Kapalbhati also has that hyperventilation. So hyperventilation is generally sympathetic. You are fast, sympathetic, because it triggers your fight or flight kind of thing. But what we do is after that stimulation, we relax it through Anulam Vilam or full yogic breathing and slower yogic breathing. So that combination often works pretty well. And my suspicion is that carbon dioxide, the rise of carbon dioxide and then subsequent slowing breathing and eliminating it out has some beneficial impact, which needs to be studied, or I don't know, or I have to find out. So that's kind of in a breath, from a breath point of view. I mean, I'm trying to see. I must have missed a lot of things. So okay, the other thing when we talked about okay, so bandhas. So, we talk about bandhas. We talk about kumbhaka bandha. So when we hold bandha, or you exhale out and then do bandha. So bandhas is you doing your anal sphincters and your tummy gets tightened, Ujjayini bandha and Jalandhar bandha. And I'll come to Ujjayi bandha also, Ujjayi pranayama also. So here, all these three are three junctures of the vagal system. So what you do is, so when you do that maneuver, the Mula Bandha is nothing but, it's also in modern terms, it's called Kegel maneuver. So you bear down, you kind of and pull your muscles up, okay? And then you, in the stomach, you hold, you constrict your stomach. And then here, your chin is kind of pushing on the glottis. So what's happening? Here, again, as I said, the vagal system was the sacral part. So vagal system is up in the head region, and then again the sacral region, right? And somewhere there in between the meat. And so here, when we do that, the vagal system gets triggered. And in the Uddiyani Bandha, in the middle, when we are holding it, it's a bandha, which it's a strong strong thing that's happening there, which is holding the it's putting pressure on the gastroesophageal juncture, and there we also have nerve endings for the vagal system. And then here, and I'll go to Ujjayi breath after this. Here, this is the seat of all this, the 12 cranial systems, but specifically vagal system, because it has all kinds of branches into the eyes, ears, larynx, the upper superior laryngeal and inferior laryngeal, and the esophageal, and the pharyngeal system, glossopharyngeal nerve system. So there are few nervous systems that are interconnected. And vagal system is an afferent system. So vagal system brings in sensory inputs and brings it to via the stem, thalamus, and eventually the pituitary gland, secretion of hormones. So this is how it goes. It goes like all the stuff coming in, sensory inputs, taking it out through the stem of the brain into the thalamus, and then branching it out. So what is happening here is here, there's a total vagal stimulation. That's why the three bandhas are very advanced techniques. You don't do it lightly. And people who can do that gets this huge and profound parasympathetic calming experience. What that means is that you will really you're really grabbing your exciting system and cooling it down very, very solidly. You're going into your zone, and it's a very powerful technique. Now, Ujjayi breath. Ujjayi breath we do. We're restricting the glottis and making a lot of. As we do that, you're vibrating, parts of the body, parts of the nasal and mouth cavity, uvula, and the soft palate that are getting vibration. That vibration triggers again through the vagal, and then the vagal comes back into doing through the through the pharyngeal, upper pharyngeal and lower pharyngeal, superior pharyngeal nerves. Does a lot of things to push the tongue out, and that's why Ujjayi breath is very, very important for sleep, especially apnea. People who have sleep apnea, if done well and done for a long time, it corrects that, the soft palate and the tongue going in, and creating that snoring sound. It corrects that eventually, and that's also play of this parasympathetic nervous system. So so basically, all we are doing, all we are doing in yoga, and then again the asanas have their own things, and I'm going to take maybe another class on that, take one asana at a time. So basically, let me see if I have touched upon a few other things that I wanted to talk about. So one of the tricks, one of the tricks that has been suggested. So if you have an inhale of 5.5 seconds and an exhale of 5.5 seconds, say, and I would say 4 and 6, but this is a rule of 5.5, interesting rule that I've been reading somewhere. 5.5 plus 5.5 is 11. So, and 60 divided by 11 is approximately 5.5. So 5.5, 5.5, 5.5. So inhale 5.5 seconds through the nose, not through the mouth. Exhale 5.5 seconds, and that will give you the 5.5 times breathing in 1 minute. That's a quick way to remember. You can vary it a little bit, but if we can do this, there's a lot of traditional observations, and of course there are some very good observations of what it does to on top of the nitric oxide. And I'm going to read out those benefits that I gathered. It's huge. And I treat a lot of people. In fact, I'm trying to treat a person who has 4th stage lung cancer, and she doesn't want. I mean, she's having difficulty in a lot of ways, breathing as well as others. And I'm slowly trying to get her to breathe properly. And the other thing is Brahmari. Brahmari also, the noise has impact on the NO2 secretion. So that also has huge impact on your distribution. And NO2 is not only this lung oxygen thing, but NO2 apparently has a whole bunch of other benefits throughout in the other systems, and we can take that up. So let me read out this. This is a list of about 20 what nasal breathing and NO2 can do to you. Redistribution of blood throughout the lungs, meaning better absorption both in the lower and upper lung. Nasal breathing allows diaphragmatic breathing in the lower lung, which is absolutely important. And it's not only nasal breathing. Along with that, if we add the conscious, aware belly breathing, it does wonders. Eliminates forward head posture. So one of the things I found out, that in our history of evolution, in our anthropological structures that happened over thousands of millennia, thousands and thousands of years, millions of years actually, that the Homo sapiens and others, they had broader jaws and broader nose, and they all spread through their nose, and they were generally healthy. Their teeth were good. In fact, few generations back, people had better teeth. But it's found that as we got into cooking and eating softer food, our requirement for the chewing and the jaw become smaller and smaller, our mouth becomes elongated. And then eventually, around 1600 AD, with the advent and usage of sugary food and bakeries and things like that, our structure of the face became longer, and the tongue became as if the tongue is going to the back. So we started doing a lot more mouth breathing than in the past. So from a genetographics, like from Homo sapiens to humans, that transition, and then even in the humans, we started eating all kinds of prepared food and made it nicer and nicer, made less pressure on our jaws. The jaws get smaller, constricted. Our nasal passages and other passages became a little smaller, and therefore the increase of mouth breathing. Apparently 80% of people in the West, especially the children, do mouth breathing. And that is seen to be a huge problematic area for a lot of people. So the other impacts are induces better sleep. Now the other thing I forgot to say, it sterilizes. When the air is going through the nose, the sterilization, NO2 specifically, does a much better job of sterilization. And all of these have an impact on people. They have done a study on people who do mouth breathing. Kids have more propensity of ADHD and less focus. Well, the other thing is postural. The hunching, posture, also comes from mouth breathing. So if the mouth breathing, the tongue is back. So what do you do when you get a choking or something? You move forward, right? So in order to move the tongue forward, we lean forward, and that starts the process of this becoming this hunchback of Notre Dame at a later point in our life. Speech issues are triggered by mouth breathing. Sleep apnea is one of the other issues. What else? Medication. Yeah. So there are a whole bunch of almost seems like the breathing through the mouth is the worst health habit one can have. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that doing yoga, specifically pranayama. I mean, I have direct experience with pranayama. I have had lung problems in the past, and I started doing pranayama, specifically about an hour-long pranayama. I used to do it one time. No, I don't do it anymore, but I do pranayama every day, minimum. And my doctors at one time said, what are you doing? Are you taking the medication too much, or are you doing something else? I said, I'm not taking your medication. I'm doing only breathing pranayama. And we turned out to be a good friend. He actually refers a lot of lung issues to me. I kind of do some classes with them on breathing. So breath and the vagal system, they're all closely related. They're very interconnected. And by using these two things, and then the other things also, then the muscular aspect, the somatic aspect, the voluntary systems are also important. And with pranayama, what we do is we control the involuntary with our voluntary systems. There are yogis who can stop their heart. There are yogis who can really control a lot of involuntary nervous activities. And so that's kind of more or less my discussion today. I think I covered most of the main points. I just like to see if there is anything. Yeah, so, and this whole Ida, Pingala, the sympathetic, parasympathetic, we can have a long discussion on that some other day. But huge, like, a lot of these pranayamas, like there is a pranayama called Karna Rogantar pranayama, or also called Valsalvic maneuver. What you do is inhale and close your nose and try to exhale. You do that when you are, in fact, this is done when you are in the airlines up there coming down, your ears get plugged. The immediate effect is the auricular nerves get switched and your tympanic membrane gets stabilized, and so forth. So this is a play. Breath and vagus play is extremely important in our system. Well, I think I have finished what I had to say. If you guys have questions, maybe you can throw it out and we can have an interactive discussion.
Yes, Sanmayji, I want to talk.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, would you please talk a little bit about yawning? Because we hear that it's because of lack of oxygen, but when we are tired, then we yawn, correct? And then the yawning helps to get more oxygen. Is it correct? Why do we yawn?
Yeah, so I have to say that I have not studied yawning the way I have studied these other aspects, but based on what I understand, is what you actually said, that you yawn, you are fatigued, maybe your body is reacting to that mechanism of yawning to get some oxygen in, to kind of rejuvenate and refresh you. It also would have some impact with your vagal system. The vagal system is also in some ways trying to bring you into a normalized state, calmer state, but normalized state. But I'll look into it more deeply. I cannot give you the exact physiological and yogic explanation right away. But I think what you are hinting is probably right.
So, Sanmayji, I have one question. Thank you for sharing a lot of information. And I'm sure each of the pranayama has its own significance and benefits. But on a daily routine. I mean, now that we are all working from home, but when things get back to normal and you're always running short of time, what are some of the must-do pranayama given the hectic lifestyle you have? I mean, every day. If I were to carve out around 20 minutes or so for this activity, what are the top pranayamas that you would recommend, and each of how many minutes?
So, as a person who takes yoga therapy very seriously, I would not give a straight answer to this, but I will tell you what to do. But because you may have conditions which are not conducive to certain pranayamas. But generally, for a normal, healthy person who has 20 minutes a day, I would suggest to do like 2 minutes of Kapalbhati, followed by about 9 rounds of full yogic breathing, followed by 9 rounds of Anulam Vilam or Nadi Shuddhi, and then 3 to 5 rounds of Brahmari. As simple as that. If you can do this on a regular basis, it will. And the reason I have explained today a little bit is that the Kapalbhati will excite you in a lot of ways, and then you calm yourself down. You go into that parasympathetic mode. Your vagal stimulation happens. Your inhalation, exhalation through the nose, the nitric oxide happens. So your overall breath health improves drastically.
Okay. I just want to reiterate. So you said Kapalbhati 2 minutes, and then yogic, the full yogic breathing around 9 rounds, and 9 rounds of Anulom Vilom, and then the last you said is 3 rounds of Brahmari, right?
3 to 5 rounds of Brahmari. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that should be good. I'm presuming you have no bigger diseases of any kind.
Yeah. Knock the wood so far so good.
Yeah,
yes,
that's
I'm average.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Sanmayji, I have no question, but I want to tell. You do so much hard work, research and everything, and you bring it to us. We are lucky to hear you.
Yeah, thank you.
It is benefiting a lot of us, and to have a healthy, good life. I wish you also a very good, healthy life.
Thank you. We all are connected. So yeah. And you know what, this teaching or I'm doing teaching. I'm also doing yoga, and in fact, I'm doing in like 6 different organizations. So I cannot do more with CHT or CHI. I wish I could do more. The thing is, it's also enriching me. Just when you teach, you learn, right? So, for example, this yawning thing, now I have to do some research tonight to figure this out. So, we are learning from each other. We are this whole thing about Dinacharya. And I always did a little bit of that before when I was actually, I retired in end of March. So I always did something. I always did some practice. But after I retired, this became such an important part of my life. So I do, for example, I get up in the morning, I do my water thing, and I hurt my right knee badly 2 months back. I was trying to rearrange some boxes, got really hurt. So I cannot do my Malasana, but I'm using this sweaty, what is it called? Sweaty potty. So it's a stool which you can use to put your legs up, put your knees up, and it helps in your elimination. And then I'm doing my tongue scraping with a copper tongue scraper, which I on and off did before, but now I'm doing regularly. I'm doing my Jal Neti. I do my Sutra Neti through we're using a catheter. I'm using my, these massages. I don't know whether these are, our yogis used to do this. Yeah, Karna Ragantar. This is like this is what this is doing is the auricular branches of the vagus nerves are getting stimulated, and that has some beneficial impact. I'm doing on and off Trataka. I don't do every day or every night. And then every day some form of yoga or not is happening. And on top of that, I do my cardio, my walk, my biking and all that. And then studying the whole day and lecturing and here and there. So, it's this whole process is actually enriching me more than I'm being selfish here. And I think I'm getting, I'm sure people are getting some benefit, but I'm getting benefited more than anybody else. Yeah. So thank you for those kind words. Anybody else? Anything else I can answer or debate or discuss? Chandra or Sahar?
My turn is over. I already asked a question. So.
You asked two questions. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. We really, so like the other person was saying, we're really lucky to have you. I thoroughly enjoy your sessions. It's really awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll leave tonight. I'll let you know in the next. I have a morning class tomorrow, 5:30. If you guys want to join.
Oh yeah, then I'll not miss it. I'll be up by 5:30.
5:30. Yeah, 5:30. We'll have a very simple but very calming meditation practice.
Nice. I'll be there, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.